Hi, thanks for joining me today. Friday, July 17th. It's Friday, Fact Check Friday. I've got one story for you today. That deals with COVID-19 and vitamin D. Now, I got to throw a few disclaimers out there to make sure that everyone understands I am not a medical expert. I do have a fancy microphone. I am the world's greatest fact checker, but I am not a medical expert. And to go over the top with that, I'm not going to cite anything specific today. I'm just going to make generalizations about what I've learned about this topic, and you're free to investigate this for yourself, to fact check me. That would be awesome, but I just want to make it clear, not a doctor. I don't know a ton about this information. So the fact check that I want to do is whether or not vitamin D is going to save you from COVID-19. So the claim, vitamin D will save you from COVID-19. Clearly, that's going to be false, okay? But there are many caveats to it, and let me share all that I've learned about this topic. I was shocked because there's so much in the media about our current situation with coronavirus. And this information I haven't seen anywhere. Now, I know that it's out there because I looked it up, but I didn't accidentally run into any of these stories myself. And that's the importance of vitamin D in fighting viruses. Now, apparently, this is known by like everybody in the medical community that vitamin D helps fight viruses. So, for example, if you're vitamin D deficient, if you don't have enough vitamin D in your system, you're more likely to catch the flu every year. Did you know that? I didn't know that. That was news to me, totally new information. And I was also shocked to find out about vitamin D deficiency in the United States. I thought, who's vitamin D deficient? It's so easy. To make sure that you're not vitamin D deficient, for me, it's you get enough sun and you have a good diet and you got plenty of vitamin D. There's nothing to worry about. Well, it turns out that white Americans, 20% of white Americans are vitamin D deficient. Like, whoa, that many? That seems insane. That level is so high. And the reason why I think that that's insane is this is so cheap to do. You can either, one, choose to eat a good diet, but if you have a poor diet, all you need to do is take a multivitamin or a supplement of vitamin D. I mean, they sell it at Costco, they sell it at Walmart, they sell it everywhere. I saw it at the dollar store, sells vitamin D. So there's really no money reason why people are vitamin D deficient. It's just knowledge. It's just that perhaps they just don't know or they don't care. But by making sure you have sufficient levels of vitamin D, you're going to be less likely to catch the flu. Well, that should be enough for everyone to make sure that their levels are high enough. When you go to your doctor, check, how are my vitamin D levels? What can I do to raise them? What foods should I be eating? Or what cheap thing can I get to supplement every day to make sure that I have enough vitamin D? Now, something else that I've heard my whole life about vitamin D is that you also get it from the sun. So I live in Portland, and in the winter, right, we don't have a whole lot of sun. It's gray for months on end. And so they often say, be sure to take your vitamin D to supplement because you're not getting it from the sun. But now in the summer, I go out and my body will process the sun for vitamin D. There's something that I learned that I didn't know either, and that is that the darker your skin, the less likely you are to process the sunlight and turn it into vitamin D for your body. Now, I'm probably not even using the right terms or terminology for that, but the lighter you are, the easier it is for you to process it and get vitamin D. It turns out that many Black Americans cannot get any vitamin D from the sun. Did you know that? I didn't know that. I'd never heard that before in my life. I was talking to a couple friends of mine who happened to be Black, and I asked them, hey, did you know that you might not get vitamin D from the sun? And they were like, I'd never heard that before. They'd never heard that before. They had thought that they can get vitamin D from the sun. Turns out that's not true if you're really dark. You need to make sure that you're supplementing. And I think that this knowledge should be readily available to everyone. This is something that should be in high school health class. I mean, maybe they taught it. I probably wasn't paying attention. But this information is so basic, and yet I'm not hearing about this anywhere at all. Now, with regards to Black Americans, 40% are vitamin D deficient, at twice as many as white Americans. And that is a huge, huge number that they're not getting enough vitamin D. And it's so easy to make sure that you can get vitamin D. It's proper diet, and if not, making sure that you're supplementing, you're taking your one a day, you're taking your vitamin D pills. It's so easy to make sure that you have sufficient levels, and yet 40% of Black Americans are vitamin D deficient. Now, this can really come into play with coronavirus. Now, we don't know specifically about coronavirus, but we do know that vitamin D does help fight viruses. So one might assume that it will help with coronaviruses. In fact, if we look at what they do in France, if you are a test positive for COVID and you're 65 or older, in France, they inject you immediately with 50,000 IUs of vitamin D. They think it's that important. They also recommend anyone under 65 to supplement with vitamin D, with a lot of vitamin D, if you test positive for coronavirus. So at least the doctors in France, the medical community in France, thinks that this is really important. There was a study in India where those people that tested positive for COVID-19 that were vitamin D deficient, 99% of them died. And those that were sufficient with vitamin D, only 4% died. Now, this could be a correlation. This doesn't prove anything. And this is a third world country. This is another thing that you really can't make direct comparisons, but you can see the importance of having enough vitamin D in dealing with this virus. That's just another example of vitamin D levels and how it helps fight a virus. Knowing what they're doing around the world with this definitely should affect what you think about making sure you have enough vitamin D. Now, I've also seen people talk about, oh, look at the rates in Sweden. They're not so bad and they didn't close down, and people are making that case. I don't know if you knew this, but in Norway and Sweden and Finland, they have been supplementing their food. They've been fortifying it with vitamin D because the governments know that because it is so far north that they don't get enough sunlight during the winter. And what they do is they will fortify their foods with vitamin D. So there aren't vitamin D deficiencies in Scandinavia. It's very rare. And surprisingly, right, the death rate in Scandinavia is much lower. Now, these are all correlations. It doesn't technically prove anything, but these are trends that are important. And this is something that I think should be brought to light. So I'm doing that today on my tiny YouTube channel that will get 200 views. I think that this information is really important. And if you think that it's important, you can share it with people that you care about. Is vitamin D going to save you from COVID-19? No. Is vitamin D really important in fighting viruses? Well, it looks like it is. And it's really easy and cheap to make sure that you have sufficient vitamin D. Did you know that the darker your skin is, the less likely that you'll get vitamin D from the sun? I didn't know that before this week, but apparently this has been known for a long time. But I'm not seeing it in the media. Are you? I'm not. So if you think that this video is important, please do me a favor, share it with someone else because, it's going to get 200 views. I've got a tiny YouTube channel that is hidden pretty much from the rest of the world. So I appreciate you sharing this information. Let me know your thoughts and have an awesome weekend. Peace.